Hello everyone, Steven here with Cardboard Coalition, and today I figured I would bring you a playthrough of Rattus, and this is the big box version. So this has the Africanus, the Academicus, Pied Piper, and then some bonus stuff, which is inns and guilds and some extra cards and stuff like that. But today I figured I'd just give you a how to play the basic game. So if you want to join us up at the top view, we'll get into the setup and how to play. All right, welcome to the top view. So we're going to go ahead and go into setup. First thing you do is you put out the player board. This is a 2 to 6 player game. We're set up for a 4 player game, but it doesn't matter the number of players. You're still going to use the same side of the board. You'll just use different regions. You see there's a light zone, a darker zone, an even darker zone. And then there's this orange color zone right down here. And depending on the amount of players, it will dictate what zones you'll use. The rule books will let you know how to go about that. So one of the things to pay attention to while looking at this board though are these arrows show that they're neighboring regions. So it shows that these regions are neighboring, and that will go into game mechanics later on. So let's go ahead and get into setup. We got the board out. That's our first thing. The next thing that we want to do is we want to select how many players we're going to have, which is 4, but we want to select the cards that we want. So for 4 players, it tells you to use 6 cards. And for your first couple games, they give you a specific numbers of cards you use, types of cards you use. And in this, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Makes it really easy. So you go ahead and put those cards out. The book will also tell you if you use different player counts, how many cards to use. And then once you get more advanced, how to swap out cards. And remember, this is the big box, so this has a whole bunch of extra cards that you can add. All right, the next thing you do is you have players pick their colors, and they go ahead and put their colors out on the board. All right, once that's done, you want to sort out the pink or purple ringed rat tokens, as you can see right there. And you go ahead and you mix them up. And you put out enough for the zones that you're using, depending on your players. Right now it's 4 players, so we're using the light brown zones. All the extra tokens you go ahead and set over in this pile. After you do that, you go ahead and you take out the brown rat tokens. So they have the brown ring, not the pink ring. And you go ahead and mix your leftover pink ring starting tokens, rat tokens, and your added tokens. You go ahead and mix them all up. And then once again, you want to pay attention to player count. So in a 4-player game, you would take 16 tokens away. And know that they're mixed. So some of them might be the starting, some might be the regular rat tokens, these brown rat tokens. You go ahead and take 16 of those away. The next thing that you do is you take the plague doctor, right? And you randomly pick a plague region, and you go ahead and set it down. So in this one, we just kind of put them in Germania. All right. After that's done, starting with the first player, you just pick a first player and you go clockwise around the table. We'll say green is our first player. First player puts 2 of their workers, 2 of their people in one of the regions, playable regions, and then it goes all the way around the table. Once we get to the last person, right? That person then proceeds to put another 2 down. So you see blue has 2 here, and then put another 2 down, and you go back around the table all the way to the first player. So at the end, all players will have put down 4 people, right? Everyone's going to get 2 turns, and they'll have put down 4 people. Once you have all that ready, you're ready to play the game. All right. So what Rattus is your 1347. You're in Europe and North Africa, obviously, during the plague. And what you're trying to do is have the most citizens survive that plague. And how you survive that plague is by putting citizens on the board and hoping that the rats, the plague, does not destroy all your citizens. Now, the end game is triggered if one player gets all 20 of their, well, it says all of their people, but I count them. Woo! There's 20 of them. If they get all 20 of their people out on the board and they're there at the end of the turn, so they have all 20 of their people on the board at the end of the turn, that starts the end game procedures. The other thing is if you have tokens, you go to grab a token and they're depleted, that starts the end of the end round or end game procedures. So this is how the game works. Each player takes a turn going clockwise around the board, starting with the first player, and then there's 2 phases during their turn. There's the action phase, and then there's the plague phase. So the first phase, let's go over that, the action phase. So what you do during the action phase is you could pick any region on the board. It could be a region that has the plague doctor in it. I always call it the plague doctor, but the plague token. And it could be a region that has a different color group of people, as you see here, right? You could pick any region on the board. The thing that holds you back is if there are no rat tokens, you can't place anybody there. There has to be at least a rat token. The other thing is it's the amount of rat tokens. So if there's only 1 rat token here, you could only put down 1 person there. That would be the beginning. But let's say, for instance, this zone had 2, then the green player can put 2 people down in that zone, right? So remember, you can only put down as many people as rat tokens are in a zone. No rat tokens, can't put a person there. The next thing that you get to do is you can choose one of these cards over here, which are abilities, but can cause you problems later on. And for this game, let's go ahead and say we'll take the king. And the king basically lets you take 1 player and put them in the safe haven, right? But there can't be any rats in the zone. So right now, player 1 couldn't even use this card because there's rats in the zone, right? So during the action phase, all these cards, at least in the beginning set, are action phase, except for the, I think they call this the chivalry one. I always call it the knight, right? And you think about that symbol is the one thing to keep in mind. This one works during the plague phase, and that's because it moves the plague doctor 1 to 2 more, depending on the amount of players, really. And you could read that to figure out exactly how it works. But it allows the plague doctor to move further. All right. So once you have populated an area, increased population, and you have taken a class card, then it goes into plague phase. Now at the plague phase, what you have to do is you move the plague doctor to 1 neighboring area. Remember, these arrows tell us that they're neighboring. So you pick one of the areas and you can move the plague doctor there. So you move the plague doctor. The next thing you do is you look at how many rat tokens you have in there. Well, let's say it this way. Move the plague doctor, then you add rats. And how you do that is you look at the rat token that's there, and based on that, you put other rats. There is a chart in the rule book so you can remember this. If there's 0 rat tokens, you add no rats. If there's 1 rat token, you add 1 rat. If there are 2 to 3 rat tokens, there could never be more than 3 rat tokens in any region. If there's 2 to 3 rat tokens, then you will add 2 rats to neighboring areas. So it spreads, the plague spreads out. That's kind of that idea. So in this case, there's 1 rat token. We would take 1 rat token and we would put it in any of the areas surrounding the area the plague doctor's in, any of the neighboring areas. Now, if there are already 3 tokens, let's say there's 3 tokens in an area, I can't place there, right? And in the off chance that there's 3 tokens in all the surrounding areas, you just don't place. But the game says that's an off chance. So in this case, we get 1 plague token. We take that plague token and we pick where we want to put it. We'll put it in Germany. No, I looked at Germania. We're putting it in Italia. I don't know maps. All right, so then once we've added rats, then we go ahead and the next thing you do during the plague phase is you resolve the plague. The plague gets resolved in an area where there's a plague doctor, at least 1 plague token, 1 rat token, and at least 1 worker of any color, right? So in this case, we can go through and resolve the plague because there is 1 rat token and there are 2 workers. In the case of multiple tokens, you would go through 1 token at a time, kind of over here. So what you do is you flip 1 token at a time, you flip the first token, and this is where we could talk about our information on our token. And the brown ones are just like the starter purple ringed ones. It tells you how many people. So there has to be 2+ people in that zone to go ahead and do this next part down here. So we look, 2+, there's 2 people here. Then we go ahead and 1 person is taken away for each of these symbols. These are the symbols that are on the top of the card that I said you pay attention to, right? So first player went. Let's see if we can move that in so you guys can see. First player went. They happen to pick the king card. So king, you lose one of the guys. And then you go ahead and take this and it goes out of the game. It goes in the discard pile, into the box. There's really not a discard pile. You kind of get rid of it, right? Once that's done, it goes to the next player's turn. That player does the same thing. They increase population. They choose a card if they want to choose a card. Then it goes into the plague phase where they move the plague doctor. Then they add rats, and then they resolve the plague. And you go round and round, like I said, until you hit end game. And end game is if one player has all their workers on the board, which is any of the playable regions, or safe haven. Safe haven is somewhere, once you put someone there, they can't be touched by plague. They're safe. There's no losing that person on the board. The other way that the end game phase will start is if you run out of tokens to put on the board. Not tokens on the board, but tokens to put on the board. All right. Once you hit the end game by either having one player having 20 people on the board, or when it's time to grab a rat token to put on the board, the add rats phase, there are no rats left. Once that happens, everything stops and you go counterclockwise and everyone can use their card powers. Now, some cards do have different powers, and you could always find this on the back, right? It'll tell you your card powers on here on the back. So everyone goes ahead and uses their powers. Once that's done, then you go ahead and you resolve all of the rat tokens, 4+. If there's not enough people, token doesn't get played, goes to the box. Let's see, what do we got over here? We got 4+, there are 4 people. We would play through this. This one means the person with the most meeples, but both of them have the most, so they both lose one. This next one means all players lose somebody, so they would also lose one again there. You get rid of that. You come up here, you go through all of them. That's a 4+. We don't use it. We have this one is a 3+. There's 4 there, so we go through this again. The person with the most, they both have the most at this point. You go ahead and get rid of those. Oh, sorry. Then you have the merchant and the witch. No one has those cards in this scenario. This plague token wouldn't be resolved. There's no people there. This one right here, when you flip one, it's 2+. What do we got here? We got the chivalry or the knight, the merchant or the peasant. None of those there. So this doesn't go off. We flip the next one. Woo. Flip this one over. Looks like it's 4+. So we don't follow there because there's not enough people. Go ahead and get rid of that off the board. Then what you do is you count who has the most people. And remember that you count over here anyone in the safe haven. So if someone had 1 in the safe haven, you would count that. So in this case, we have green has 3, pink has 3, yellow has 3, blue has 2, right? So in this case, we had to have a tie between 3 people, right? If there is a tie, what ends up happening is the game is won by the tied players. They just survived the plague, right? In this case, poor blue, would be dead, right? They wouldn't survive. But in another case, let's get a couple people off the board here. Let's say we've plucked and we've pulled like that. In this case, well, we could leave blue. Let's not hurt blue too much. In this case, after we've gone through all the rat tokens, green has 3, 1, 1, and 2. Green's obviously the winner. And that is how you play Rattus. All right, guys, that is how you play Rattus. This is the big box edition. Yes, do I have the bottom part of the box over here? It's because I want to show you guys stuff. So with the big box, we talked about today just how to play the basic game. But like I said, remember there's the Pied Piper. Well, that's the base game. There's Academic. I always got to look back at it. Academicus. Then there's Africanus expansions. There's also the bonus expansion. You have things like inns and guilds. Then you also have some bonus cards, but in those you have all these modules. right? That's why I want to show you guys. Yeah, I have most of it sleeved. I'm waiting for some sleeves. I think they're coming today for the rest of it. So you have a bunch of different modules that you could play with to kind of change up the game. And then, like I had said, lots of different cards. So once you get used to playing the game, there's tons of different cards to choose from to be able to liven up the game. So this is how you play the basic version of the game, or that is how you play the basic version of the game. This is a 2 to 6 player game, big box version. Keep that in mind. It's for ages 10 plus, and it takes 30 to 60 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm Steven with Cardboard Coalition. Catch you in the next one. Bye.